how was the pottery session? Did you go yesterday?
Oh, yeah. Did you see I've been throwing? I'm not very good at throwing. I'm practicing. But I was trying to make like a totem, things for a totem, you know, to go on a pole. So they had to have holes through the middle. So I've done a teapot with a cup and saucer on top. And then on top of that, there's a bowl. And then that's got scone and cakes and sandwiches on it. And it's like, so it's all being built up, different things.
Oh, that sounds so cool. I love something like I love handmade pottery. So, so do you have you've done it, or do you have to? What do you? I thought you have to put in the oven, isn't it, to make it harder? The clay.
Oh, yeah. You just let it dry, totally dry out, and then it goes into the kiln at about 1,000 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a bisque fire. That's bisque, and then from there you can glaze it. You know, Jeff just looked at me with this because he went out and bought me the cider for tonight's recipe. And he said, are you supposed to be drinking the cider? But I haven't told him we only need 2 tablespoons.
Drinking the rest?
I wouldn't want it to go to waste.
Exactly. When I look at the recipe, I just think, okay, we need only 2 tablespoons. So what I'm going to do for the rest? So I'm not a cider drinker. I can't drink much anyway.
Well, tonight...
Pardon?
You are a cider drinker tonight.
Yeah, tonight, yes. Are we
Look
on?
at chopping, Nick. You're chopping already. I haven't chopped anything much.
Guys, it is 7:01, so we're live and everything.
Hi.
Wednesday afternoon at 7 o'clock. Welcome to our Wednesday Cookalong. Our first pass to our hostess, Chrissie, for the evening.
Hello. It's Wednesday afternoon or evening, I should say, and we're all getting prepped up to cook or make rather, and we are going to bake it. But Marianne, who's actually from Dublin but is living in London and is cheese mad, and she works with cheese, don't you, Marianne? So she's going to help us make our cider pate, which is a vegetarian pate, which will be delicious. So Marianne, please talk us through and tell us what we need to do to make this lovely pate.
Oh, Marianne's gone quiet.
Marianne muted. Marianne, are you muted?
That's weird.
Can't
Not
hear you.
muted.
Maybe unplug your speakers.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Ah, there you go. It's on something.
I'm terribly sorry I have gremlins at the moment. I have gremlins who keep making all of my electrical equipment explode, turn off, or randomly shut down. So,
And that includes the oven, doesn't it, Marianne?
yeah, no, we're not going to talk about my oven. It doesn't work. I mean, that's no bad thing. So anybody who is going to bake it, and anybody who finds it too hot to turn on their oven and just wants to watch, more than welcome. But yeah, so if you have your oven and you're going to bake it, then if you start preheating it now, it depends. Some ovens heat up faster than others. Mine doesn't do anything right now. So about 160 fan, 180 not fan. So yeah, so you do that. This is pretty stable. You could probably make it and not bake it and still eat it. It's nicer if it goes in the oven. I did pick a recipe if anybody else is in London or anywhere near. So basically, so you need half an apple. Ideally some kind of dessert apple. So if everybody has that. The celery, I tried it with the celery. You cut those off. And then chop it up, and then you end up, so put it in there in a microwavable tub, or in a pot on the stove if you don't have a microwave.
Did you use the top half or the bottom half for the celery?
So I tend to just cut off, I tend to use the green bit because the green bit is slightly less tough. So the reason I didn't, in fact I'll do it. So stringing, and what that does, you'll know if you've eaten celery. I love celery, but you'll know if you've eaten celery that those are the bits that are really, really tough.
Yeah.
That's a bit that is hard to. So if you ever have a recipe, or if you ever end up with celery in a recipe, or you know, if you're making soup for somebody who's really, really fussy, if you do that, it's just a little bit easier.
Those little.
In the words of D.A. Smith, life is too short.
We're taking those little grooves off, are we? Is it better?
Yeah, so yeah, hang on, I'll get the other bit. So the
I'm
little
a bit
groove.
high for that job, Nick. You've got to end up cutting your hand off.
Sorry, I'll try this. So the little ribs on the celery, if you just cut in beside them, and then you can kind of peel. And do you see the way, like, I can peel it?
Oh, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's taking. So those bits are really fibrous and really, really stringy, and that's why a lot of people don't like celery.
Right.
So.
I was not.
What are we doing first, Marion? So the first thing we're going to do is prepare our apple and celery.
Yeah. So basically, this is going to go in the microwave. So chop your apple into bits.
Yeah.
If you're using your celery, do that. I'm not. Just because I didn't particularly enjoy it. I'm going to be honest, I didn't particularly think it was great. So I think it's much better to wait and then just dip the celery in the cheese thing at the end.
So not putting the celery in with the apple.
If you really like celery, do. I thought it just meant that you had to sort of cook it for a bit longer, and then too much heat, so I wouldn't do it. This recipe I sort of had made years ago and had not paid attention to my own notes before I sent Nick the method.
So now do we have to put celery in microwavable bowl? And
Yeah, so
also
the celery and apple. So put the apple in with the cider.
Okay.
And then the celery, if you want to use it, chop up small and put in with the apple as well.
And we're going to microwave this, are we?
Yes, you're gonna microwave this. So when everybody's ready.
Okay, I'm cutting the apple in a small chunk.
Yeah, if you cut it fairly small, because the bigger it is, obviously, the harder it's going to be. So if you're using a dessert apple, it should be relatively small.
Okay, for how long that we have to put in the
So
microwave?
if you put it in the microwave on high power for about a minute and a half, what you want is you want the apple to be soft and the celery to be reasonably soft.
So having put it in your recipe and then said you didn't like it in with the, I have put my celery in. I'm going to have my celery.
I just found what I found is when I put it in the microwave, I ended up needing to microwave it for longer, and then the celery was still just a bit bitty in it. And I absolutely love celery, but celery's much nicer. Like celery and cheese are really, really good together. And I just felt it was better than just eating at the end the cheese.
Okay.
Cheese pate. So is everybody good? Will I put things in the microwave? Okay, I'm going to put mine in the microwave and then everybody else can kind of...
How long are we microwaving for?
So it says a minute and a half on high. It depends on your microwave. What you're looking to get is like a sort of slightly chunky applesauce texture.
Okay.
You should be able to mash it with the fork. If anyone doesn't have a blender or doesn't have one to hand, you'll be able to mash it with a fork.
Okay, let me mute myself because my microwave is quite loud.
And if anybody doesn't have a microwave, I know there's somebody messaged earlier, you can do it in a little pot in the stove. What you're looking for is like an applesauce, kind of.
So you could use just a plain applesauce as a replacement for
Yeah, to be honest, if you had a jar, you know the way sometimes you've made applesauce, you've kept it, if you had applesauce in your fridge, then you could use that instead. And I think you just, okay, look, what do I have? I've got some chutney, I'm going to have some cheese, and then dinner.
As we're back on cheese, Marianne, and my microwave's running, maybe you could show us your cheese.
Well, so what do we want to show me? Sorry, I swear to God, my sound is really bad.
Cheese shelf we have in the fridge. I've never seen a whole cheese shelf.
Oh yeah. So so I showed this earlier. I'm going to do this quite carefully. If my video goes dead, it's because something else is broken. So this is my fridge, which also, by the way, says don't panic, which I thought I needed for this evening.
Yeah,
Cheese fridge.
It's a good
that's a lovely shelf in your fridge, Marianne. I like that.
We would all like that.
Well, do you know what? In my 40s, I suddenly became lactose intolerant. And I had to go for a whole year with no dairy. And it, honest to God, it nearly killed me.
So out of curiosity, is it specifically like cow dairy, or can you have sheep and goat?
Sorry, I missed that.
I'm sorry, is it specifically, so lactose is the sugar?
Yeah, and it was just cows. It was the only dairy from cows, not from sheep or goats. So I could have those.
This is so I have Quicks whose cheddar I'm using today. So quite often people, it depends. Everybody's allergy is slightly different, or intolerance is slightly different. But extra mature, because it's aged for so long, and the reason cheddar tastes sharp is the lactose sugar turns to lactic acid. And once it's gone to that, there isn't any sugar in it, so quite often it's fine. Same way sometimes Parmesan. Quicks also as well doing a really, really amazing goat cheddar. So if you want cheddar but you can't have cow's milk, their goat cheddar is absolutely amazing. And you can use it sort of in the same way that you would use, regular cheddar.
They're also fantastic goat cheeses, actually, aren't there? And there's actually a goat camembert, which is awesome.
Oh yeah. No, there's goat's milk, sheep's milk for people who don't like. So I find the goat's cheddar and stuff is not. It's not goaty the way goat's cheese years ago. People would think that you're locked in the shed hugging the goat. But people who really just don't like it, sheep's milk cheeses are also amazing. So sheep's milk doesn't have it does have a taste that you can recognise, but it doesn't have that same completely identifiable like tanginess that you get over goat's milk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've microwaved my apple now.
Okay.
How's everybody else? It's still quite fun.
Yeah, I am, but my microwave is quite loud. That's why I'm muted. And thank you, Marianne, about that knowledge, about cheese. Information about cheese is very valuable.
I have quite a good friend who became lactose intolerant, and he loves cheese and he loves cooking, and there's a bit of like. It's a bit difficult because everybody kind of ends up. I'm going to get out my. Well, no, that's a waste. So I'm going to get out. I don't have a food processor that works because everything broke. Literally everything. I just had to do this and everything broke. So
Oh, I know. You don't get mine.
But yeah, so I had a friend and he was quite sort of like, oh, I'm never going to be able to have this. But actually, that are really good, and even as like. For maybe something like a Parmesan, you can substitute like an aged sheep's milk cheese. So we are doing one at the moment called Cheddar, which is an aged sheep's milk Gouda cheese from Ireland. But you can always find if it's just cow's dairy, you still have all of the cheese that you can have. So
What do you think about vegan cheese then? Sorry to swear at you.
I'm going to say, so it's not, obviously it's not something that we would do, and we work pretty closely with our cheesemakers, and I think it's fine. I think I would view it exactly the same as I view, mass-produced, heavily processed cheese of any variety. If you're getting it off a very small maker, then you are supporting a maker and you're supporting something that somebody put a lot of love and care into. And I think, fine, if that's what you're doing, this is great. I think that there is a little bit of a thing where if what you're going to do is buy something that is super processed, it being vegan or not vegan is somewhat beside the point. I think if you want something really good, you need to go to somebody who made it with love and with care. I have had some vegan cheeses that were fine. I have had some that I genuinely didn't like. But I've liked almost most cheeses, but there have been a few, probably fingers in one hand territory cheeses that I have genuinely just not been to my taste. It doesn't mean that they're bad, it just means they're not to my taste. But I think the most important thing in my view with food and certain cheese is support the local guys, support the little guys, because so Quicks, they've been on the same farm for 500 years. Or knocking on 500 years. Like, they know their cows, it's their herd, they graze on grass. Like, they're there from the second it starts to the second the cheese goes out for us to sell it in Borough Market. Like, they really, really know. Our other producers, they all care about. So, Couple Bishop, who's Stilton I'm using for this, they know all of their farmers. Like, they know who makes their milk. It's not coming in a big container in the factory.
Yeah, I think this is a very valid point, this, Marianne, and I think it's worth, we could talk about this, couldn't we, when we pop our things in the oven?
Yes,
because, you know, being in a dairy county, you know, we're very aware of how the farmers, you know, treat their cattle and their livelihood. So we'll touch on that. Let's get, and also I want to
because we otherwise
Marianne's got. So Marianne, let's crack on with this gorgeous pate. What's the next step?
Okay, so depending on how soft your apples are, which will depend on what type of apple you've used, if you've got like a stick blender, if they're soft enough, just mash it up with a fork. Okay. So I'm going to try that just because otherwise you won't be able to hear me. So if you kind of take a fork and just mash it quite roughly. The other thing as well is if anybody really didn't want to use cider, didn't want to use alcohol in this, you could use apple juice with a tiny bit of cider vinegar in it.
I'm just going to mute myself.
Oh, that is a good idea. So that is a good tip that just in case it's something.
Yeah, because I mean the microwaving will take out the alcohol, but I know I've had some mates who they don't want any alcohol in it at all. So what you're looking for is you need kind of like a sort of roughly, like a sort of chunky applesauce. It should be quite dry, but a chunky-ish applesauce. This recipe is very forgiving, which is why I picked it.
Yeah, I have a very good blender anyway, so I'm sure that once
I do not. I my food. So my food processor sat down and died. My oven is sat down, and I think it's just too hot. Everything is gone on strike until the weather cools down.
Everything's melted. I feel like the wind witch of the west.
Yeah. Can I go live with you guys, please?
I've actually got like a flooded surgery at the moment and a crazy lightning storm.
I've had to shut the door, Nick, because it's actually beating the house down, I think.
Oh wow! Okay, so
Storm.
So guys, I'm gonna do this. I'm trying to remember that I'm supposed to be showing you what I'm doing, not just doing it.
Yeah.
So do you see that this is kind of like something like that?
Yeah.
Maybe like a little bit smaller. If anybody thinks they need to put it back in the microwave for 30 seconds, do. But it doesn't. Because again, it's like apples again or something that some are going to be harder. The one that I had was quite old, so it was a bit wrinkly and a bit soft.
I've got a lot of juice in mine. Is that going to be a problem, or is it?
No, I literally picked this recipe because even I couldn't mess it up.
Okay.
That's why I picked it. So it shouldn't. If there's enough water, show us, Nick. Because if there's too much water in the container. Oh, hey, you're using a fancy thing. No, that looks all right. No, that's fine.
You're cobbling yours.
Mine are really dry. I'm laughing. So actually, that is a really good idea. So I don't have to use my blender, which is, again, intermittently working. Where is my... We'll just take my instant noodles out of my pestle mortar. So actually, anybody who has a pestle mortar and wants to do this, you will get cheese in your pestle mortar. So if not, who's doing it with a blender?
Okay.
It's me, and I just blend it now like this.
Okay, so
Yeah.
anybody who has a blender or a stick blender, so get your apple, get like just over half of your apple mix. Okay, put that in your blender. Get your blue cheese. If you don't want to use blue cheese, just put in all cheddar.
Okay, I got this blue cheese. I haven't got a clue what type of blue cheese it is. It begins with R.
So I'm using Stilton because Proper Bishop Stilton is quite creamy, and I like blue cheese. If you don't like blue cheese, if you don't like blue cheese, so this basically, so part of the reason for doing this is when we made the donuts, I kind of thought of, so I was trying to stuff them with bits of grated goat's cheese, and it wasn't really entirely working. And I thought, so this recipe, if you don't want to eat it as pâté in the end, you can cool it in little bits or chop it into squares, and if you make those donuts and you poke it into the middle, like if you end up with leftover cheese, so put your cream cheese in.
But you made the donuts. Yeah.
That's fine. It's fine. Something just fell off the wall.
And you made those as a filling.
Huh?
We made the donuts a few days ago, didn't we? So you used this as a
Oh
filling.
yeah, no, because I really, really love those. And I was actually using the goat cheddar I was talking about from Craig's. And I had some cherry jam.
That sounded good, the cherry jam.
Yes, so I had cherry jam and goat's cheddar. But because that recipe was amazing and it was really, it was quite savoury. So this is going to be stop beeping.
So are we putting our cheddar in with this as well?
Yeah. So get your cheddar. Where is my grater? I can't believe something else just fell off my bloody wall. I know, literally, like all day today, I at one point was just like, I'm not going to be able to do this because I'm just going to electrocute myself live on Facebook. So get your cheddar in.
So
Which cheeses are you using, Marianne?
So I'm using Quick's extra mature cheddar because it's really, really strong. And I'm using Cropper Bishop Stilton because I love blue cheese. Like literally, blue cheese is my baby. I love it. And then the cream cheese is just a random one. And again, if you have a local cream cheese maker, but I didn't have one, so it's just the one that we all know.
It's a very delicate grating technique you have as well.
Oh, that's literally because I don't want to take my finger off again. I literally just my mission for this was to avoid giving myself a serious injury. And I'm doing quite well, Nick, so stop commenting on it. Who knows what will happen? No.
So in here, Marianne.
The only reason I'm not going to use a blender is just purely because no one will be able to hear me. Yeah, so if you whisk it.
Yep. So in here, can you recap for me what is it in here in the blender?
Yeah. So you've got cream cheese, so 85 grams or 3 ounces. I'm going to read soft blue cheese. So I hire one maybe the quantity of Ovel and down, but you could substitute, mess around with it. And then 50 grams of cheddar, and I'm using extra mature cheddar. The stronger, if you are doing blue cheese and another cheese combined, the stronger the blue cheese, the stronger I would make the cheddar. But if you say wanted to do this with something like a goat's cheddar, I would add more goat's cheddar, and then just so you'd have, instead of blue cheese and cheddar, I would have all goat's cheese, and then or what you could do is use goat's cheddar. So use Quick's goat's cheddar, and if you have a local person who's making like a soft goat's cheese, like a cream cheese goat's cheese, you could then use that.
Okay, so look like the soft cheese and blue cheese is the ingredient that will bind everything together because it's
Okay.
3 minutes.
So again, anybody who has the blender, I'm just going to mash this up in here because I don't think it will.
If we've grated it, we don't need to blend, I guess. We can just mix it.
It's, to be honest, because I hadn't made this in so long, and I kind of cobbled together 2 different recipes. So also as well, by the way, guys, put the rest of your apple in. Or your
all of the apple goes in.
Yeah. Again, I find it works better like this. I'm a terror for reading the recipe, reading it about 3 times, reading 5 different versions of it, and then kind of making it up as I go along.
Yeah, I think a lot of us seem to do that, don't we?
Well, I don't know, but there's also as well as the bit where I know what I like, and I think people quite often sometimes get a bit nervous, and they're like, oh, well, I don't want that much garlic, I don't like it, and then it's like, well, no, the recipe says.
Yeah, I think when you're cooking, you mustn't be afraid of having a go and improvising a little bit, because, you know, sometimes you read a recipe and think, well, that's not happening. And then other recipes will say a tablespoon exactly, and you think, well, no, it doesn't have to be exactly a tablespoon. Not that it's cooking.
Yeah, garlic is a great example, because I did once years ago. Now I don't know, did the person, I think the person wrote it down wrong for me, but they wrote a bulb of garlic when they meant a clove. It was a very interesting evening, but thankfully I wasn't the only one who ate the result. But yeah, so I'm getting my chives out of the freezer, because I buy fresh chives off a lovely guy in Borough Market, and then I freeze them, because otherwise I don't use them.
I'm a little bit worried. My chives are outside, and it's raining like crazy out there.
Nick, did you
You
not
can't leave them out.
rain?
You don't look like you're made of sugar, so you would be okay. But if it's raining like I think it's raining, then yeah, please don't drown.
It's really raining, Marianne. It's really raining.
Okay, well, do you know what? You'll be fine without the chives. If you've got, like, I mean, you could, if you really want to, really finely chop some spring onions, but chives do work better. This is one instance where the recipe is right.
So how much of the chives are we going to add to this?
Depends how much, like, I add, like, I will show you on camera, so I'm adding about, like, hang on, I'll do it with my hand, because you can't see
a big pinchful.
Yeah, like that. Like, I've just poured chives all over the thing, we can go with it. So, I'm not adding a huge amount, because I think you can always put some more on, but you can't take it out if it's too oniony. But again, if chives are your favorite thing, you could use red onion. You could probably put garlic in it. If I was using something like onion, I would, or if I was subbing onion or spring onion, I would probably fry it, and I would probably fry it in a bit of butter. So if you put the chives in, and then black pepper. So I love pepper, so I would put a lot in.
Is the thing on there with the chive is very nice to eat?
Pardon?
This part of the chive, is it nice to eat, the flour?
I think I have eaten it. Yeah, you can eat chive flowers. Do you know what you could do, though? Oh, okay, well, you have done it. I was going to say you could save it and use it as a beautiful thing at the end. But you
it's garnish.
No.
Yeah, garnish. Well, edible flowers are really interesting. So...
I blessed it already, and it's liquidy. It tastes delicious.
Okay. Oh no, but this is what I mean. Like, if anybody just desperately doesn't want to turn on their oven, you can basically put this, and if you watch it, put it in a microwave bowl, stir it, like do 20 seconds, stir it, 20 seconds, stir it, and you basically end up with like really, really good that way. I am going to follow the recipe and cook it in here, but that's, you know. So, okay, so has everybody basically got to the point that we can put it in ramekins?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we all happy? Has everybody tried it?
It's delicious.
Just a quick
But it's really good right now.
Just a quick question. Do you think can I sort of put it in ramekin and put it in the fridge and bake it tomorrow?
I would cover them and just make sure they're not near anything really smelly in your fridge. You know, so cheese when it's done like this will, especially when it's small, will take on flavors. So I'm gonna. Oh, that is nice. I could basically stand here and eat it now.
Yeah, honestly,
In the
Marianne.
recipe, it says to 4. Again, you know, I kind of think 2 is maybe enough, but I also can't fit more than 2 in my thing. I did
So when
also
you
do
fill
an
up the
experiment.
ramekin, is it half or is it full?
Hang on, I'll show you now how much that I ended up getting out of it.
It's delicious though, already. It's gorgeous. Oh.
It's good.
Romani, have you already got plans for dinner? It's not pate for dinner?
Yeah, we're going out because of Charlie wants to go out. So we are like, where are we gonna go? It's slightly too late, and
So,
anyway, I'm just gonna take a leave.
right. Okay, so bang it to get the air out. You don't have to do it. So I've got, can you see this? So it's just under the rim on mine.
Okay.
Because nothing in here is raw or is dangerous or needs cooked. So this one enjoys the cheese when it's hot because you can basically just open it, eat it, and you're done.
This is beautiful, just this mixture itself.
Okay, so
Very tasty, as it is.
yeah, no, you can basically just literally if you put this in fact.
It's like a dip.
Right, I'm gonna keep one out. I'm gonna put one in the steamer. Yeah, so I'm gonna do one in the microwave as well, just so you can kind of see. Because actually, to be honest, in about 3 minutes. And this is quite good if you bought like a huge lump of cheddar and you've forgotten a bit about it, or if you end up with lots of odds and ends and not enough for a cheese board, but then you realise you have people coming over. Provided it's something that works together.
I'm going to microwave as well then, because I can eat this one a lot quicker.
Yeah. So I'm going to put one in the little thing, and then we can have a chat, and then we can microwave it. I'm going to microwave one. So I'm going to put that in because that's what I'm eating for dinner. That is actually. So for the microwave thing, it's probably fine in the ramekin, but it again depends. If anybody's using a metal ramekin, please don't explode anything. That sounds silly, but I've done it myself. So.
Sounds like something I would do.
No, I put it in the microwave.
It's in the microwave though, and it's not exploded.
So basically, there used to be a thing you used to get in restaurants in the US called spin dip, and it's spinach dip. It's like spinach and artichoke dip, and you made that in the microwave. So I put it in here. So what I normally do with anything like this, and especially if I don't know, is I do like 30 seconds and watch it. So one in the microwave and one in the fancy way.
So you're just playing it by eye, really?
Yeah. Because it's also as well, I can tell people about microwaves, but if one's 900 watts and one's 750 watts and one's this and one's that, do you know that way? Yeah. So the other thing as well, when you're cooking anything like this in the microwave, take it out quite frequently and stir it.
So what are we looking for then, Marianne? Are we looking for it to, it's not going to firm up, is it, like a souffle or anything? It's going to be...
No. So, I don't know, can we see, so you can kind of see where this is getting a bit...
so it's getting a bit more like...
So, basically what you're doing is you're or again, if you had like quite a fatty or if you had quite like a liquidy, or not liquidy, if you had quite a creamy cheese, you could, you wouldn't necessarily need cream cheese. Like if you were using a very soft cheese to do this, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but stirring it. You stir it is because otherwise it'll start bubbling too hard on the outside, and the middle won't be melted.
All right.
I am laughing.
I'm experimenting. I put one bird eye chili into it.
What did you put a chili into it? Is it good?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. It's okay. It's fine. Everything on my end is working. So the other thing that is very much worth noting, if anybody likes kimchi and cheddar is one of the most delicious. Kimchi, I love kimchi in Stilton, but apparently that is possibly just me. Kimchi and cheddar is amazing. absolutely
Oh,
unbelievable.
I've got a jar of kimchi. I'll try that.
Dude,
Me
so
too.
kimchi and cheddar, like, now, today is not the day for toasties, for where I am, but do kimchi and extra mature cheddar, or in fact, I did kimchi and goat cheese cheddar, and it's amazing. Like, it's really, really
Oh.
good. So,
That sounds good.
don't do what I was about to do and grab it out of the microwave without a sauce.
Yes, it gets very hot, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It gets super, super hot. But, so I've given that. No, so if you keep taking it and stirring it, then it gets really liquid. I should have really just had this recipe be done in the microwave in the first place. But
So, Marianne, tell us about. So, you're just waiting for it to get to that consistency where it's.
It's basically, yeah. So it's basically when it gets to a dip consistency.
Yeah.
And so what I did the other day when I made this like this is I ate a large amount of it. I ate a lot of it. It's really good. It is really, really good. I ate quite a lot of it, and then I kept a little bit. So I did this last week as a test. I kept a little bit of it, and I put it in the fridge. So you let it cool down, obviously, because it's quite hot, so you don't put it hot into the fridge. Let it cool down, and then I made the donuts. That, you know, the donut recipe that we did a couple of weeks ago?
Yes.
So I made like a tiny, tiny batch of the donut dough, because again, it is just me. So if I make stuff, it's only me eats it, and I refuse to throw out food. Which again, why all my clothes are long and flowy. So what I did is I got, because I tried just putting bits of cheese into the middle, and it didn't quite work.
Had the cheese gone quite firm by that point, by being in the fridge?
Yeah, so I put it in the fridge, let it go fairly firm, not freezer. I did try one in the freezer and it ended up frozen in the middle because those things are so fast to make, and I really enjoy that recipe. So you put a little bit in the middle, then form the dough around it, fry them, take them out. Absolute legend. I reckon also if you want to do things like jalapeno poppers and all that kind of stuff, although I think you did, it's really good. It is just really good. So
it's very
this
tasty indeed, isn't it? To dip it.
Yeah, I
Very
dip it with a tea cake.
So Marianne, tell us tell everyone who's watching how you got into cheese, and do show us that book. Or what's that, Marnie? What have you got there?
Oh, I dip it with a tea cake.
Oh yeah. That's what. So this.
I just realized that I haven't got any bread and I have only half of the tea cake left. So.
But if it makes you feel like bread, so I've got like a little bit of soda bread that I did not make myself, I'm going to be honest, and that I realised was frozen before I started. But it has actually, it's so hot in London, it's gone from a brick to actually defrosted now.
That's a great idea, soda bread, because actually you've said that now, because my husband said to us, we haven't got bread, but I have got, I made some toasted tortilla, you know, the wraps, so I've got crackers. But actually, to make soda bread is so easy, isn't it? Because I have got some sour milk in the fridge, obviously, as usual. So I'm going to
soda bread was the first type of bread that I learned how to make. My mother's was and still is better than mine. I'm going to be honest. I have to genuinely fess up to that. But it's basically like, so from starting to make it to eating it is 45 minutes maybe. But yeah, I used to make it when I was a student and I had no money, because it's flour and then buttermilk if you can get it, and if you can't get buttermilk, you put like a bit of lemon juice in your milk. Lemon juice, vinegar.
Well, I've got some sour cream, that works, a treat.
Yeah. The only thing you have to be careful, I think, is you can use yogurt and stuff as well, but you need a bit of milk in it just to thin it out, because otherwise it's too heavy.
Yeah.
But it's because it works. It's also, if anybody can't have gluten, it's one of the easiest recipes to adapt to being gluten free, because it doesn't require. It's not relying on yeast and then the stretch in gluten flour to and the buttermilk or soured milk or it's an acid base.
When you look at consistency wise, I don't know why it's disappeared so much. It's It's like half inside since I started cooking this. It might be because I've eaten loads.
Have you eaten most of it, Nick?
I'm barely eating mine actually. I should probably. I've just realised I should probably try and put some of this in a plate, like, or I should try and arrange it. I'm just eating it with celery. This is how I normally stand and eat my dinner, like.
Marianne, tell us about the cheese and tell us about that fabulous book you have.
Oh, yeah. So the two cheeses I used were Stilton from Cockwell Bishop. If you haven't tried it, maybe I'm slightly biased because I love them, but it's a beautiful, really creamy Stilton. And then I have Quicks. So they're lovely. Well, so Mary Quick is the head. She doesn't make all the cheese on her own because that would be impressive, like, and she's impressive enough. So those are two cheeses I used. The book that I was showing earlier, I don't know, can we all see this? No, it's backwards. So this is a reprint. It's a really old book from 1935, and it was a series of newspaper, I think it was newspaper articles. I don't know if it was originally a book. But so the guy who put it together was genuinely worried that cheese making in Britain was going to die out completely and nobody was going to make cheese anymore. And I think there's parallels to now where, like Stilton makers, Cheddar makers, all of these amazing British cheese makers who do so much, like so Ribblesdale, the Cornish Gouda Company. If anybody hasn't tried Cornish Gouda, go do it. It's absolutely beautiful.
So how are the small cheese makers doing, do you think? Because it became very fashionable, didn't it? The artisan cheeses and the farmers' markets and things. And we're in the heart of Cheshire with dairy farmers. So there's a huge milk production and cheese production in Cheshire. So there are a lot of small makers. So how are they faring at the moment?
Well, so for what we do, we try and work as closely with. So we're a cheesemonger, so we don't make the cheese. But we try and work with our cheese makers as closely as we can, and we'll try and support them. Up to including we've looked at whether or not we would help them develop cheeses. But you're right. I mean, people need to come and buy the cheese. And if you love your Stilton, if you love your really good Cheddar. If you want to support Cornish Gouda, if you want to, deal with Ribblesdale or Swaledale, or, go buy your local cheese. I mean, yes, it's not going to be as cheap as in the supermarket because it can't be, because it's not being made by, it's not being...
And cheeses and small makers, how they produce their cheese. Would you say that's better? We're all very concerned these days with gut microbes. There's a big thing about that now, isn't there, about health and or immunity and things. So would you say that the smaller, artisan cheeses are probably better for us, or?
Okay, so I would be wary. I'm personally wary if I read anything online that makes a massive broad claim. Now, the one thing I would say, so if anybody's worried about things like, things being contaminated or who's touched it or where am I getting it, I know some of our cheesemakers, they can probably literally tell you the names of everybody who's been involved in that cheese making from start to finish.
Cows?
No, they say, so it's basically, it's like cows, and then it's me and, my husband milk them, and then we take the cheese. So we do a lovely cheese from Ireland called Ballylisk. So it's a lovely guy called Dean Wright and his daddy, and it's their cows, and they weigh off at 5 a.m. and they milk the cows, and then they bring the cheese to the dairy, or they bring the milk to the dairy. No, they don't bring the cheese to the dairy. They bring the milk to the dairy, and then they start making the cheese. So it's him and his daddy and like a handful of other people are ever go near that until it goes in a box and it arrives to us in Borough Market. So there's something, I also think as well is that we all love these local things, and there is a bit where people are a little bit worried about cost. But somebody like, so for the cows and taking care of the cows, do you know what I mean? So I feel very, very passionately about it that yes, okay, it's a little bit more expensive, but I mean, and if anybody, by the way, is in London and wants to come down to Borough Market and chat to me, or if anybody wants to send questions in via our website, I will answer them. I can't promise I'll always be right. I think I am, but I'm not necessarily always right.
But Borough Market's well worth a visit, isn't it? Because the food there is amazing.
Borough Market's
you don't get anywhere else.
But you can, but I would always say to people, and especially now, like, look, you know what, if you're local to Borough Market, or if you're in London, you know you're going to be in the area, definitely come to Borough Market. It is fun. It is genuinely fun, and the market has worked so hard, over the measures and to make sure that it's not overcrowded, and there's all this, and it's an amazing experience to do. And part of the reason I ended up working there was because it was something I found, and I thought, this is over 10 years ago, and I was like, oh, what is this place? So I, of course, thought I'd discovered it. And then it turned out it's been there for hundreds of years before me. But there's something quite magical, and especially so the Green Market where we used to be, we're now in 3 Crown Square. So the Green Market, so I remember walking down the steps from the bridge and then going around the corner, you're just seeing the Green Market. I was like, oh, what is all this stuff? But when you go, like your local farmers market, whether you come down to Borough Market, whether you see us at any of our farmers markets that we do, and we do quite a lot, or even if you're lucky enough to be local to one of these dairies, go get your cheese, like try and buy your cheese, your bread, your veg, anything. I know we all started making sourdough, like it was going out of style during lockdown, but please try and support as many local people as you can, because they, like, every single thing that you get off them is made with absolute love, and it's made with care.
That's a good point, isn't it, Marianne, is supporting the British produce, supporting British cheese, and supporting British farmers, because that was enlightening. They've had a bit of a bad press, haven't they, in the last couple of years with the environment things, but of course, as soon as all the factories stopped and the aeroplanes stopped, it's amazing the air quality improved vastly.
It is worth saying, and so things with the environment, so very small producers, it's like the land that they farm, and I can't speak for all of them, and I'm thinking, but just to mount a defense where people are like, oh no, all farming is bad, and you're doing, that's their livelihood, that's where they live, that's their home, that's where they're from. Like they do care about it, and they do care about being able to pass it down to their children, and the way that their granddad passed it down to them. Like if you look at somewhere like Quicks, where they've been there for nearly 500 years, they deeply care about where the cheese is made. It's part of their whole thing, So I think to be honest, if you're really, really concerned about it, I would go shop in your local place and not, and every does bits, but you do the little bits.
Cheesemongers that they've had like trouble during COVID getting this right in the milk. Have any of the makers had a problem getting the milk and getting the cheese made?
Not really. There was some who had to slow down production. None of our cheese makers, as far as I'm aware, because we deal with a lot of we deal with British and Irish, so an awful lot of our cheeses, so things like Cheddars, because it's aged, you can slow down production, or you can make that, and so if you're going to have to hold on to it for 2 years anyway, well then it just means that you've a bit more coming on stream. I think for makers who made young cheeses or things with a very short shelf life, so definitely if you have anyone local in the area who's making great, so when you make cheese, there's a massive cost investment to aging it. So you put all of this time, energy, effort, and money in the form of your milk or whatever, or your time, into this, and then if you're not going to sell it for nearly 2 years, that's a long time to have your money tied up.
It's something you don't think of when you're looking at cheese.
Well, the other thing that's really, really worth thinking about is that cheese is massively seasonal, and nobody really thinks, because you can go in to wherever and buy a block of cheddar all year round, and now places like Quicks have been doing it for a long time, know how to space out their cheeses. But if you think about what the cows or the sheep or the goats all eat is seasonal. So we have We have Irish cheesemakers. We have other cheesemakers in the UK as well. I just know I'm not repping Ireland entirely, but I just know a little bit from having talked to them quite recently. So they will only make cheese when the sheep or the cows or the goats are out on pasture. So when they go into the sheds for silage, and they're, basically when it's freezing cold and soaking wet, and all the wee animals come in because they'd be frozen outside. So they don't make cheese then. So what will happen sometimes, especially with things like sheep's milk cheeses, there's this whole break in the year where you don't get it, or the only way that you get it is that it's aged. So you don't get young ones, you get older ones. But I would really, really encourage anybody who's watching, as I said, more than welcome to go come talk to us. I won't be everywhere. I try, but I won't be everywhere. But definitely, like, even for you guys, if you guys have local cheesemakers, local farm shops, a local farmers market, get out there and support them. And it's a much nicer way to shop, I'm going to be honest as well, and you're talking to somebody, and if you don't know what to do, if you're like, oh, I like the look of that, but I don't know what to do with it, they'll be able to tell you. They'll be able to tell you whether their mate over the way can sell you something that goes perfectly with it, So,
fantastic.
But definitely,
Well,
if
we've
you
learned a lot
ever
about
get a chance, come to Borough Market if you've never been. It's amazing.
That's wonderful, Marianne. Thank you very much. That's been great. A really cheesy evening. It's actually thunder and lightning and chucking it down in Cheshire. But
we check the oven. They're coming out.
What's that? Nick?
The cheese coming out of the oven yet?
Oh, that's that.
Well, it's not in an oven. That's a point. Let me see. Oh, do you know what? So this has gone up like a souffle, which the other one didn't. So I did one, by the way, in a slow cooker in like a steamer basket. So we're
and how did it turn out differently, or?
Yeah, no, well, it's a bit puffier. That's about it.
Oh, this looks good.
Oh my God, the steam coming off this! I've just got what is commonly known as a
that looks good, Nick. Mine's got a nice brown top. I've got one.
Oh, your one looks nicer than mine. So mine didn't brown because it's been in a slow cooker. But it's quite puffy, and God, it smells good. See, this is awful, because now I'm going to go and make donuts and put the cheese mix in them, and then,
Well, I've got a brown one, and I've got one uncooked, because I thought it was so delicious uncooked as well, so we're having you can replace the cheese with the ones you like, you can replace the cheese with the odds and ends you've got, and I made a version of it a long time ago with just blue cheese, and it was amazing. It's a nice way. And also, if you do end up with the odds and ends, and especially maybe if you're having people over, but maybe if you spend your money getting better cheese and you want to get the last bit out of it. That's a good idea, actually, using all your odds and ends.
Well, you can now. Do make sure that they're not too. Do you know what I mean? Like you could use Parmesan in this and it would work. But taste it before you cook it, just to make sure that you haven't put too much of something, or maybe too much of a really strong blue cheese.
Too overpowering, do you think?
But I think it's because it's important that we all kind of if you buy something, it's important you know how to use all of it, and that's part of the thing as well. Is like, everything is very expensive. If so if you've got tomatoes, and you eat 2 out of the packet and then the rest go off, then that was those were 2 very expensive cherry tomatoes. But cheese is good in that it keeps. It's designed to keep. It's what is it? Cheese is milk stab at immortality.
Marianne, I do wonder though. I'm gonna have a lot of cheese tonight. I'm gonna have 2 more of these ramekins, I think, and that's gonna be a lot of cheese I'm gonna be eating. Am I gonna have cheese nightmares?
I don't have cheese nightmares. I have some very vivid dreams after cheese, and I have had some very vivid dreams after cheese, but I quite enjoy them. Don't watch a horror movie, maybe. I'll tell you what, Nick, why don't you tell us whether or not you have cheese nightmares?
Yes, we'll wait to hear
We'll check in tomorrow and say how, it's so hot here right now, I'm probably not going to sleep.
I know, I'm still wet from the rain outside.
Very good.
But I might, because it is literally, it's probably, I would say, about 35 degrees inside my flat.
Yeah.
Have another
Right, that's fantastic. I think we're all going to enjoy this. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm really desperate to start eating now. I think my husband's tasting the
Well, I wouldn't mind, but everybody else is very politely waited, and I've just been like sitting there just eating it the entire time.
Well, I won't deny that I licked all the inside of my blender, so that was delicious.
That's well, I'm sorry, but isn't that one of the great joys of cooking anything?
Even the cat's looking tasty at the moment.
So thank you, Marianne. That's wonderful. And
guys, thank you for coming and watching me, because I know it's unusual weather to be turning on an oven. So
I know it's
and as I said, if anybody's bored and wants to type questions in, I will try and answer them as much as I can.
Marianne, it's been wonderful. Thanks for the cheese and it's a wonderful dish.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
okay. And are we saying Saturday, Nick?
Yeah, you got to do the sign up.
Yeah, on Saturday we're going to be cooking pork in cider and fennel sauce, which sounds absolutely delicious and sounds a really good sauce to have with something like a pork, you know, a fattier meat. But I think it's actually going to be a fillet. I'm not quite sure. But if you go to gbsocial.co.uk and click on the menu on Cookalong Live, then you will see that all the recipes that we've done and got coming up for you are there, so that you can get yourself all prepped. So Saturday dinner is going to be a nice pork dish with a fennel and apple sauce. Yum.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Marianne's gone. I haven't left yet. I don't know how to end it. Oh,